morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Just a little bonus bliss. Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to season 4 and episode number, we're Thursday, so that would make it 528 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Cryo Media Network. Yeah. Today, recording day is Thursday, December 5th, 2024, and it is now winter at the Beaver Lodge officially. We, unlike Belleville, which is not that far away, did not get dumped on. I guess had something to do with the lake. So we had like a little bit of snow, but we mostly had squalls and really cold wind and whipping wind. That's mainly what we had. So, but we got spared the dump, but not the case in other places, as we reported on the past few shows. 140 centimeters or more in the Gravenhurst area and 120 in the Bracebridge area. So, for the first snow of the year, it's like, winter, hello, I'm back. Did you miss me? No, go away. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. Thank you so much for your support. Before we do anything else, Mr. Grizzly, how is your mental health doing today, sir?
Well, sir, when I wake up, I'll let you know. I'm not fully awake yet. I'm a little groggy. I mean, the last couple of days of traveling have kind of kicked my ass. Yesterday was a complete, total, and utter write-off for me. I just woke up at like 9 o'clock yesterday, so... Yeah, I was out down for the count yesterday and got absolutely nothing done. Felt like crap. Just sheer exhaustion will do that to you. And you know, traveling as much as I love to do it, it upsets your sleep pattern. It upsets your digestive pattern. You know, everything just takes a left turn on you, whether you like it or not. So yeah.
Yeah, indeed. As you could see, Kits and Cubs, I'm going through everything green in my wardrobe while I still can. I am doing well. I'm a tiny little bit heartbroken and a wee smidge frustrated. Nothing terrible. We lost again at curling yesterday. I won in the morning, but we lost in the evening. And so I lost 3 of the 4 matches this week. And over the last 2 weeks, the 8 matches, there have been at least 5 that we have lost, in part, largely, because our opposing teams, even though they were playing well, yes, on shots that were missed, completely missed, that end up hitting something that bounces on something that moves something that, and it's like, and something like in an impossibly good place. It's just like, why? And I know it's like that. I know it's like that. Curling can be like that. Sometimes you got to be good to be lucky, and sometimes dumb luck does enter into it. But 5 out of 8, man. I'm like playing my heart out. I'm just like sweeping my heart out. Things take a nasty turn, and it's like, no, don't get down. Keep a positive mental attitude. Short memory is a curler's best friend. Yes. And often we're like clawing back and getting ourselves back into the game and all that kind of stuff. And then something just happens at the end. And it's just like, come on, we worked so hard. We didn't give up. We didn't quit. Where's the reward? And that's the life lesson, kids and cubs. Sometimes you do all the things right. Sometimes you don't give up. Sometimes you are a good sportsman, even though everything's going wrong. And sometimes you manage to keep a cool head and get yourself back in the game. And you still lose.
It happens.
It happens. Problem is that I'm learning that lesson a little too often for my liking over the past 2 weeks. So, yeah. Oh well. C'est la vie. But it's we've had they melted down part of the ice a couple of weeks ago to try and fix it because we just had a terrible season. In fact, our curling club just sent us a message that next year we won't be playing any matches before Thanksgiving weekend. We'd always start in the last week of September or something. And just climate change and whatnot says it's just too hard on the compressors. Apparently, it cost the club an extra $5,000 to $10,000 this year just to try to run for that extra month, and it was in vain.
Wow.
With all the energy requirements. So yeah, it's sorry, I got thrown off by the extra screen. Sorry.
You got to concentrate, man. You got to concentrate.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. So yeah,
I'm the one with ADHD.
Yeah, indeed. I was trying to look elsewhere because I was just being thrown. I didn't know why that was going on. So yeah,
new technology.
I don't know where I was going. I'm sorry. Anyway, on with the show.
You were talking about curling.
Yeah. I don't know where I was going with it though.
Oh, okay. Well, where do we start today? I was off yesterday because I slept in till 9 o'clock. 10 to 9 is when I woke up, actually. The day before, I was in Montreal the whole day and didn't get to have any meetings. And I was trying to meet with some colleagues, but we just couldn't coordinate it because I was downtown. And they were like, "Can you come up?" I'm like, "No, I don't have a car, man. I took the train here. I'm taking the train home." They're like, "Yeah, okay, don't worry about it. We'll get together next time." And, the meeting was scheduled and then it got canceled at the last minute. So just things had to get juggled. Anyway, so I spent the day in Montreal and did a little window shopping, picked up a couple of items that were needed. And I was a write-off yesterday. I didn't look at the news or anything at all yesterday. And this morning I got up and looked at a few things. And I started off with the Hawk Tuah girl who launched a spit coin. Get the joke? Spit coin, Hawk Tuah. Anyways. A meme coin, and as it turned out, a lot of people lost a lot of money. I think something like $500 million was lost or something like to that extent. So people are freaking out and saying she should be put in jail. And I'm like, why? Because you put your coins in the slot machine, you pulled the lever and you didn't win? It's a gamble. All of those virtual cash is a gamble. So people are stupid and greedy. They just think, I can get rich quick. No, it never happens. People are stupid and greedy. They want to put her in jail because it's lost its valuation. I'm like, sorry, that's what happens.
That's not their fault.
Exactly.
And you bought it. It's like, did you like?
Yeah. Exactly.
There is an expectation of a minimum of due diligence when you make an investment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Not
did
all
you?
investments pay off.
I mean, Bitcoin is one of the riskier ventures,
Yes.
I guess, but you can,
Oh yeah, there's
right?
money to be made.
We have Scott from Hot Wallet, right?
Mhm.
Like this, who's really gotten to understand Bitcoin and Bitcoin understands the flows and how it moves and what influences it and that type of stuff. And he's fine with that and strategies and like that. So there's a way to play it if that's your thing. But it's like in all the world of potential investments, you go to Bitcoin.
Yeah. Or in
And
this
that
case,
out
the
of, out
celebrity
of
version.
all the potential Bitcoins, because there is actual Bitcoin,
Correct.
the original established one, you go to the Hawk Tuah Bitcoin. I am sorry, but there's a part of that that's on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I doubt. I'm sure there is one or two, but there'd be very few Bitcoin investment people and people in investment saying, "Yeah, that's a buy."
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's just no, not very smart.
It's interesting when the do your own research people don't do their own research and then all of a sudden become constitutional scholars and well isn't there's a law for this, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
If I invest in something and the value goes down through no fault of the people running the stock, because if that's the case, then that is criminal.
Well,
But
and this isn't even a
like if it
stock.
just goes down and you lose your shirt, there's no law.
Yeah.
It doesn't come. It's almost people these days seem to think that if they vote and they don't get the result for which they voted, that their vote literally did not count. Right? It's like I voted, so I'm guaranteed the outcome.
Yeah,
I invested money, so I'm guaranteed the outcome. I lost money. Wait a minute. Who do I sue?
yeah, it doesn't work that way.
You want guaranteed income, get a guaranteed income certificate. But no. It doesn't work that way. You're not guaranteed an outcome or success.
From Rihanna. Bitcoin is a scam. Scott from Hot Wallet tells people not to invest all their money into Bitcoin and only invest what you are comfortable losing. And that is sound advice.
Yes, if you have play money and you want to go there, that's it. But that's not part of your core. If you need that money to make rent,
don't do that. That's a bad idea.
No.
That's the Freedom 35 Trailer Park Boys mentality, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's literally
Freedom 55. I'm 56, and I ain't got no money coming in. So no, it didn't work out.
Yeah, that's literally play money, right? Some people go to sports events, some people go to shows, some people like to play in Bitcoin or gamble or whatnot, prospect, whatever it is. Like that's your thing, but only your play money. Only your play money. And even then, don't spend all your play money in one spot. There's lots of things on this planet to enjoy.
It's just complete idiocy. And I'm like, you know what? I have no sympathy. None. You did something stupid. It paid off poorly. Sorry. Your fault. That's FAFO, right? Is what it is. You did that and boom. It's like if you go to the casino, you put $1 in the machine and it doesn't pay off. Oops. Okay. Crypto is, like you say, PNC Bio, it is pure gambling. Only put money in you plan to lose. And if it pays off, great. You're exactly right. Only put cash in that you're willing to lose. That's what Scott says. That's what PNC Bio says. That's what I say. That's what anybody with any sensible investing strategy will tell you. You want a sure thing, go into blue chip stocks over the long haul. And I'm talking like years. They will pay off for you. Like IBM as an example, right? IBM's never lost money. Never. As an example. There's many other blue chip stocks you can look into. You can go into RRSPs where the mutual funds have diversified blue chip stocks in their portfolio, ethical funds. There's all kinds of things you can do. But you're trying to get rich quick. Because a few people have done it, you think you're going to as well. Well, guess what? There are 8.5 billion people on Earth. A handful of those people have won. A handful.
Yeah.
So, you're closer to being homeless than you are a billionaire.
When it comes to investing, slow and steady is fast.
Yes, it is. It is. And you have to be patient. And if you keep checking your stocks every day, well, that's just going to drive you. Oh, it's down. It's down. Don't check every day. Just put the money in you can afford to lose, save the money you can afford to save, and just sit on the rest. Yep. And that's my financial advice from somebody who's unemployed with no money coming in.
And if you are, I am a big fan of anything with dividends, because sometimes they don't grow as fast. But when things go a little south, I like to get paid while I wait.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah, that's the thing.
Pay Beaver Daddy.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a lot of investments, but they're mostly in dividend paying funds. So, and what I do is I have right now, because they're small investments, the dividends just get reinvested back into the stock.
Right.
So that when they start to pay off larger, I'll just take the dividend. But for the time being, I'm just reinvesting the difference so that I can own more.
Yep.
So let's move on, shall we?
Oh, by the way, disclaimer, kids and cubs, do not take financial advice from a beaver and a grizzly.
No, don't.
On an AM morning politics and culture talk show. Please check with somebody who knows what they're talking about. Our experience is merely anecdotal. Required disclaimer. Okay, you were going to say, Mr. Grizzly.
Michelle Rempel-Garner.
Yes, we have been talking about her for the past little bit, but I am guessing that you might have a video clip of her running way faster than Roadrunner can say meep meep.
Well, I do have that one, but I'm not going to show you that one first. I'm going to show you this one first, and we'll look at that one in a few minutes. This one is damning evidence. Watch this.
Attempt by India to derail Patrick Brown's Conservative leadership bid in 2022. Among other claims, confidential sources said agents of the Indian government allegedly pressured Brown's national campaign co-chair to withdraw her support. Radio Canada's Brigitte Bureau is here with more on her exclusive story. Okay, Brigitte, tell us more about what you've reported here.
Radio-Canada has spoken with 5 people separately, with 5 people who were closely linked to Brown's campaign. Now, we have agreed not to name these people because they fear for their safety. As you know, the RCMP suspects the Indian government of being involved in murder and other criminal activities on Canadian soil. But according to these sources, Conservative MP Michelle Rempel-Garner was allegedly pressured to stop supporting Mr. Brown. As you know, Michelle Rempel-Garner was co-chair of his national campaign at the time. She categorically denies these allegations, and we'll get back to that. But I also want to make it clear that Radio-Canada has no evidence indicating that Pierre Poilievre was at all that knew about these Indian agents' actions at all.
Okay, because he later won that race, of course. So Michelle Rempel-Garner denies it, but sources say it was agents of the Indian government. What are these sources alleging exactly?
Well, for instance, one highly placed source in the campaign says that it was well known in the team that it was a source of discussion, of concern also, and I quote, that Indian consulate representatives had approached Michelle, strongly suggesting that it was not in her best interest to continue working alongside Patrick. Now, some sources say they heard it directly from the MP because she held at one point she was on a conference call and they discussed it amongst the team. And we've spoken to people who say who they were on that call. And one of them says that Michelle Remper talked about Indian diplomats approaching her and telling her, you need to retract your support for Patrick. Later in the leadership race, you'll remember, David, that Ms. Rempel-Garner did quit the campaign. She was saying that she was looking into maybe a move to Alberta provincial politics. A week later, she abandoned that idea, but never did go back to Brown's campaign.
Okay, yeah, she was going to succeed Jason Kenney until she decided not to run in that race. Okay.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That is what we call damning.
Yeah. Oh, you could play the rest of it if you like.
That's the full clip that I have. I'm trying to find a longer version. Yeah, there is a longer version. I just haven't found it yet.
Oh, YouTube Power CBC. And if you're on the first initial tab when you're going down, there are blocks eventually. Power and Politics, you'll see it there. Yeah, that was Brigitte Bureau from CBC. We read her written article into the show yesterday, talking about that. So yeah, those all the additional details in there about
so 21 minutes.
Yeah, no, but it's not a full 21 minutes. There's panel discussion after that, but she's the first part of that. So you could probably find where you were in there and then continue from there on. But she's the first thing in that block on the video. Yeah, the thing with this particularly, especially when you see the other clip, is that you have to remember that by not getting his security clearance, Pierre Poilievre is also not capable to do anything that he needs to do in order to protect her.
Correct.
Right? It's not just national security, right? It's the security of his own caucus as well. So again, we're talking about the muzzling and the monitoring and the putting words in people's mouths, and that's not what you intended to say. This is what you intended to say, right? And all that type of stuff, and then not doing the minimum to keep his MPs even safe. Again, this is how much he cares for his team.
Mm-hmm. He doesn't.
How much he's going to care for you.
He cares about himself and himself alone. Here, I have the rest of the clip. We'll show some more of this.
Michelle Rempel-Garner, Patrick Brown, a lot of big names in this. You know, the current mayor of Brampton, still an MP. Any reaction from the main players in this?
Now, Brown would not grant us an interview, neither would Rempel-Garner, but she did send us a written statement saying that she felt she left Brown's campaign completely of her own volition. She said, and I quote again, "In no instance was I coerced in any manner by anyone at any time." And she also said that she has always taken into account the perspectives of many different Canadian interest groups and stakeholders.
Okay, interesting. Categorical denial, but sources saying she raised it on a conference call with the campaign. Was this it? Were there other attempts at interference in Brown's campaign?
Yeah, many other, according to our sources. For instance, Hindu supporters of Mr. Brown were allegedly told by Indian agents that they should not support him anymore, that they should not be selling membership cards for him, and they should not invite him at certain events. And in the article that we published on the CBC website, we do talk about a specific event where Mr. Brown was a persona non grata. He was supposed to be there. He had been invited, was supposed to attend. His workers were all happy that he'd be able to solicit support from the Hindu community. And he was told, according to our sources, that he was no longer welcome because he had upset representatives of the Indian government. And by the way, the High Commission of India, the consulate also of India in Toronto and Vancouver have all refused to comment.
Okay, that's interesting because, in the past, Patrick Brown was seen as someone who was friendly with Narendra Modi. Obviously, based on this, that would suggest it's changed. So why would the Indian government want to stop Patrick Brown from becoming the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada? Well,
according to our sources, agents of the Modi government did not want somebody close to the Sikh community. As mayor of Brampton, the Canadian city with the largest Sikh population, he had close ties. He had become very close to that community. In one instance, there was an event where he showed up, and people some had flags, Khalistan flags, in reference to the independent state that some members of that community are demanding. And that really infuriated the Modi government. And at the time, the government itself had publicly denounced the fact that the mayor of Brampton had attended this event.
Okay, so all of this was happening, and then it was something else, because Brown never finished this leadership race, right? He got disqualified.
He was disqualified by the Conservative Party following allegations of wrongdoing linked to electoral financing. Allegations, by the way, and that never made the headlines, but they were dismissed later on by the Commission of Canada elections. By the way, both the Conservative Party and Pierre Poilievre's office both say they had no knowledge of Indian interference to undermine Brown's campaign. But as you well know, Mr. Poilievre is the only leader, party leader in Parliament who still refuses to get that security clearance that would enable him to access classified documents on foreign interference.
Yes, there is a reference to Indian interference in the Conservative leadership document in the NSI COP report that he has.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much for this. Brigitte Bureau with Radio-Canada, thank you.
So, it's entirely possible, although I don't see it as plausible, but possible that Poilievre did not know about this. Plausible. Plausible deniability. I think he knew.
About the Michelle Rempel thing, or
yes, I think he knew all about it. I mean, he paid off the whistleblower's legal fees for Patrick Brown.
Yes,
$37,000.
The Deb Jodoin part, yes.
Yeah. There's just a lot. Look, where there's smoke, there's fire, and I think there's a bonfire here, to be honest with you. It's just slowly coming out in dribs and drabs. And again, he still refuses to get a security clearance, which, as far as I'm concerned, is unacceptable.
It is absolutely.
It's unacceptable.
It is absolutely. On that front, Mr. Grizzly, according to the good people at iPolitics, as part of their ongoing probe into allegations that, quote, agents of the Indian government may be involved in, quote, electoral interference and criminal activities in Canada, public safety and national security members will question Brampton Mayor and one-time federal MP Patrick Brown over claims that his ill-fated bid to secure the Conservative leadership in 2021 may have been a target of just such an operation, as reported by Radio-Canada, and who, after failing to respond to earlier invitations to testify, was summoned to appear, which he's now scheduled to do by video this afternoon. In a statement released via social media earlier this week, Brown acknowledged that he had, quote, consistently declined previous invitations to appear. No, I don't want to go. I won't go unless I am summoned, said he to the base. And noted that he, quote, has no desire to be drawn into a partisan dispute unfolding in Ottawa. Now, normally that would make me 100% cynical, but given he's been shafted twice by the Conservative movement, I could understand why he does. It's like, why you guys keep on trying to pull me back in? I tried to be. It's like I tried to lead the Ontario BC party. You didn't want that. Fine. I tried to lead the Conservative Party. You didn't want that. Fine. I'm the mayor of Brampton. I got my little corner. Leave me the fuck alone.
Look, I'm no fan of Patrick Brown's, okay? Let's be honest. I think he's as corrupt as the day is long. That being said, what was done to him was criminal.
He was still done dirty.
He was done dirty. It was criminal what was done to him.
He may be a dirty person, but he's a dirty person who was done dirty.
That can happen. And look, he's dirty. I get it. But I don't care for what took place because that's just wrong. That's destructive to democracy. Now, I believe he's corrupt. I believe he's dirty. I believe he'll accept envelopes of cash. I do. I also do believe that he, and I could be completely way off base on this, but I believe that he is fond of democracy and our parliamentary system. I believe he actually stands up for that. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am.
Hmm.
You can be two things. You can be somebody who loves to take envelopes of cash, but at the same token, you get into politics to actually make a change.
Or just love the system of democracy that allows it so that you can keep on receiving envelopes of cash.
Well, there's that too, right? So, I mean, two things can be true at the same time. And, you know, we've proved this time and time again on this show and as examples of life. Patrick Brown, yeah, I think he's dirty. I think he's corrupt. He only likes to take meetings at the Four Seasons Hotel. That's in downtown Toronto. He's the mayor of Brampton. Why is he taking a meeting at the Four Seasons Hotel? Oh, and you pick up the tab. He's famous for this. This is not a secret. It's well known. He'll take a meeting with you as long as it's at the Four Seasons and you're paying.
Mm.
Well documented. He does it frequently. That's kind of greasy. He's using his position to strong arm you into purchasing him a nice meal and probably some beverages of some type, maybe an adult beverage or two, I don't know. But he's using his power and influence to do that. It's a quid pro quo in his case. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Look, I get it. That's how politics is done. That's not a secret. You compromise here, I compromise there, we come to an agreement. That's how politics is done. He just does it a little bit greasier. Again, all of that being said, he was done dirty. What was done to him was criminal. What was done to him was wrong. What was done to him can happen to any one of us at any given time. If somebody in a position of power and influence wants to destroy you, they will.
Yep, indeed. So yeah, so that's why I'm saying I can imagine a scenario quite plausibly that's like, dudes, come on, man, just leave me the F out of this one. It's, you got me twice already. Like, come on, enough. Pick on someone else. Yes, and I can also listen again. I mentioned it yesterday. Considering the wide array of crimes that are being suggested, that the people who have decided to make them persona non grata have been involved in on Canadian and on U.S. soil, because there is a DOJ indictment. So there's actually enough evidence to support an indictment in the United States of these things going on. And we do have one person who is no longer of this world. At least one. When we're talking about things like coercion and fear and intimidation, as was alleged to have been committed against Michelle Rappel Garner, we're not just talking about a brick through a window here.
No.
So I know there's a lot of people who mock this, and in one way, I did too. And I guess it just depends the lens through which you want to view this. So if we're just viewing this as our typical, Canadian sort of regional politics type thing, and nothing ever big or dramatic happens here because, well, we're such a tiny population of the world, nobody ever thinks we even exist sometimes. So, what is this big deal? But that's one way to look at it. And it's like, oh my God, really came to ask her a question, she ran. But if you think in the context, again, as the people from Bow of the Fifth Column say, the international poker table or game in which everybody is cheating. Yes. And then, there are the high rollers table, the big players. Then there are the emerging players that would really like just at the table below to sit at the high table. They're doing things to make moves. They might be willing to make bigger bets. If you look at it in that context, I see fear. So the sarcastic side of me is like, oh my God, have you been taking lessons from Joss Hawley? Because man, you hauled ass out of there. It's like, but if you've got the clip ready, Mr. Grizzly, the speed, I've never seen her move that fast.
Yeah, just give me a
At
second.
which she moves, how many milliseconds it takes her to consider what her next move is, it's very, very, very few. Put together. Now, it could be indeed, hey, I'm having lunch, as I mentioned on yesterday's show. And, I give you all my day.
Mhm.
Because, but can we at least agree that I get to eat and I get to poop in peace without a camera up my nose? Could be. But considering the subject matter that we're talking about and the players that we're talking about, we also have to consider this may be, if you say anything, we know where you live.
Yeah, well, we'll get to something else in a moment here, but watch this.
Hi, Chris Brown, CBC.
Chris,
I just got to ask you about you're running away from me. I'm just asking you about the.
I'm sitting having
As soon as he said CBC, she's like, that's it, I'm out of here.
She was up before.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you do? And she was up.
Mm-hmm.
That's fast. Because normally, I mean, unless you're having a very bad day, if I'm sitting there, it's like, guys, really, I'm having lunch. Stop. No, we just want to ask, guys, I want to have some. Then I pick up my lunch and then go. I've asked you twice. But
Yeah, she was
up, boom, gone.
Well, we talked about how Pierre Poilievre rules his party with an iron fist. You can't say anything that he doesn't like. You speak out of turn, you'll get punished. Blah-de-blah. There was a big story on it. We reported on it. We showed you clips. We showed you different issues. I want to show you a clip right now of a member of the Conservative Party. I'll play the clip. Draw your own conclusion. Pay attention to what the Conservative member does the entire time they're speaking.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The member opposite spoke about character, and I'm just curious how she feels about the CBC story breaking today that India allegedly interfered in the leadership race, and that members of her own caucus were encouraged to step down from helping any leader other than their current leader. If you're talking about character, then how does the member opposite respond to these allegations that their official leader couldn't win that leadership election unless there was a finger on the scale?
questions. The Honourable Member Calgary Midnapore.
Yeah, thank you very much to my colleague for that question. I was very proud to serve as the Alberta campaign chair for the leader for Carleton, and I can tell you we swept Alberta, and so I am not concerned at all about the support of the tipping the scale. To me, it just absolutely sounds ridiculous, and I think it's unfortunate that that she would say such things about that, and I think it just speaks to the desperation of the Liberal government over there. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Reading it off her phone the whole time.
It's reading it like it's coming in on the phone.
So,
as she's
full
reading
confession. She and I used to be very good friends.
it. Okay.
We've known each other for over 20 years. We used to be very good friends. Her husband and I are still on speaking terms. She and I are no longer friends. because she has gone right down the Reform Party rabbit hole and is not coming back. She will do whatever dear leader tells her to do, evidenced by the fact that she was dictating shit coming into her on her phone in the House of Commons. So no, we're not friends anymore. I've given up on her completely, and I've tried to reason with her. I've tried to talk to her. I've reached out to her when she screwed up and said, "Oh, there was a mistake. Here's what you did." I did it in private, but now she's right down the Reform Party rabbit hole and will do whatever dear leader tells her to do because she wants a powerful position in cabinet.
No,
none of these folks have a spine. None of them.
Yeah. For the people who are listening at home, because you didn't get to see the visual, we do have to say of who you are speaking. And that's Conservative Party of Canada MP Stephanie Kuzy. That was making that comment. And the thing that's interesting about that one is that she got up and, she was definitely opening with the sort of partisan type thing, but she got a flow going.
Mm-hmm.
She got a flow going, right? She lifted her head up and, talking about Alberta and how they won and like this. And then she puts her head back down and it's like, then we're not saying this is what's going on because we don't see, right? The answer could have been written out beforehand because that's normally how it happens in a QP. You think of the potential questions that you're going to be asked and you have the pre-written answers down and, like this, you can freelance a little bit and add a little bit there, but you got your, QP card. I used to work in that division at one point, actually, in one division like this for QP to get that information out to them, to make those cards and all that type of stuff. So could be, and that she just got lost in her text and she's looking for it, but she was lost in her text for a long time, and that's where it gives me the impression that the text is being written and she's like reading one or two words and waiting for the next few words to come in, waiting, because that's really what it looked like. Because normally when you lose your space in text, it takes you a little while to find it, but once you find it, you got it.
Mm-hmm.
And you get a flow again.
Yeah.
So either she kept on losing her place in the text every 2 seconds near the end, or she's reading text that is coming in live.
Yeah. Either way, it's not a good look.
Yeah. But it's like, oh, you had a good flow there going like this, and we're not going to do this. And go, ooh, kersplat. You were doing so well. And then, womp womp. Yeah. Yeah. So there is stuff going on behind the scenes in that party. And like I mentioned yesterday, this is the first time since the convoy, since people showed up with Pierre for PM flags, because that he is, one, not controlling the narrative, not driving it, two, that there's an actual adult grown up issue to deal with. Somebody suddenly announces that they might cripple your economy with 25% tariffs on everything. And we're seeing that he's kind of lacking.
Yeah, well,
in the answer department. He doesn't really have the stuff to stand one-on-one on this file.
He's
and then
coward.
Yeah. And then the Prime Minister had the meeting yesterday, or a couple of days ago. And we talked yesterday about how Pierre emerged from that meeting a little muted. Prime Minister is like, will you please stop telling people that our border is damn broken, because he had a press conference and standing at a little lectern with the little words, fixing the border. And Danielle Smith was like, oh, maybe we can take some of our marshals and whatever, right? Or monitor. Like, if Donald Trump says the border is broken and you all start jumping, going, yes, the border is broken, here's how we can fix it. Dumb. Why are you playing into his hand? Why are you buying the narrative? Why are you validating the narrative? Again, as we mentioned, Donald Trump may be very concerned legitimately about fentanyl.
Maybe. We don't know.
All right. But, it could be. That's fine. It seems that from Rosemary Barton, I guess, got to ask more questions about what went on there. And according to her reporting, it seems that people reported back to her that he seems to be actually rather concerned about this specifically. And that might be very well and good. But we are still talking as a problem, right? 43 pounds of fentanyl going into the United States from the Canadian border, which, as Mr. Grizzly pointed out, still could do a hell of a lot of damage.
Yes.
Versus 21,000 pounds of it coming in from the Mexico border. Most of anything that's produced in Canada is usually directed to Asian and, Australian markets, apparently. So saying that our border is broken when our data shows 43 pounds of fentanyl.
Yeah. Which
would seem that
can do a lot of damage. We're not downplaying that at all,
but it seems when you have the longest undefended border in the world, and it's a pretty damn long border.
You do understand
and
that
only
most
43
of the
pounds get through.
Most of the fentanyl coming into the United States comes through the Mexican border, and it's brought in by American citizens. That's I'm not making that up. That's a documented
fact.
fact.
Other thing too.
Yes.
You have all the arrest data. It's your own citizens. You know where it's coming from, and you know who's bringing it in. It's not us. Right? So Pierre came out of that meeting and, was, yes, we will, from now on until the 20th, I will take every opportunity to discuss with the U.S. counterparts how it is that these tariffs can hurt Americans just as much as they hurt Canadians. And, sort of giving the impression he was a little bit on Team Canada. But about an hour later.
Well, he wants to have another non-confidence vote in the House today, apparently.
Yes.
But he's on Team Canada.
But, that's different, though. But on this specific thing, like this, about an hour later, according to Rosemary Barton, Pierre Poilievre, quote, "Right now, we're going into this problem in a state of weakness. The Prime Minister has broken our immigration system, broken our bank, broken our borders. We need to fix what he broke to put Canada first."
Where have we heard that before?
He's gone right back to it. So the first time we can think that he was just being his petulant little, pardon me, bitch ass self. Yes. And then they had this meeting. His sort of punk ass self might be more appropriate here. And then the Prime Minister had this meeting that he didn't need to have. And we mentioned that Elizabeth May had a couple of statements about how that meeting went, and indicating that Pierre was still trying to grandstand and score some points, even with no cameras on in that meeting. But then he emerges from it saying, okay, I will do this. And then an hour later goes back to his previous ramblings. So what are the odds he got a call in that intervening hour?
I think there's pretty good odds.
No, you will not be cooperating in any way in raising this issue with your U.S. counterparts. You will go back to saying that the border needs to be fixed. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, because Pierre seems to have a lot to handle these days. He seems to would almost drive a man to drink. But just saying. Patrick Brown testifying, more news reports about India-related stuff, MPs running away, MPs being muzzled, being surveyed, being monitored. Hasn't been a couple of good news weeks for him. And then Doug Ford.
Well, if
seems to be the
he's
crowd in his
going to
turf.
make us the freest country on earth that he keeps telling us, that would mean we would be like Scandinavia. So we'd have beefed up social safety net and free health care, free dental care, free optical care, free post-secondary education. Okay, tax funded, but you're not paying at source is what I'm getting at. When it's free to enter, we fund it through taxes. That's what the freest countries in the world have. So if he says he wants to make us the freest country in the world, he's going to have to implement those programs, which he won't do because he wants to free us of taxes so we pay for everything.
But when you free us of taxes, you free us of all the services those taxes fund.
Yes. Well, here's from a Globe and Mail article. It says, Mr. Poilievre's amplification of Mr. Trump's criticisms left the impression that he's willing to side with Mr. Trump against Canadian interests as long as it helps to attack Mr. Trudeau.
He sided with Russia against Canadian interests with a free trade deal with Ukraine. He sided with Modi when the Prime Minister stood up in the House of Commons and said, I have some very concerning information. He stood up with China when we detained Meng Wanzhou. He always stands up with the other guy. This is a well-established pattern of behavior from this guy.
They never support, his party never supports Canadian interests.
No.
Never.
Jeez. So we have two premieres yesterday that had their big moment. Remember a few years ago when Rupa went to testify south of the border? And then she got an opportunity to have her moment on Fox, her big audition, see if she could make the big time. Guess it didn't really work out well for her because I do not want to say her name 3 times fast because I don't want her to pop up again, but she seems to have quieted down the last little while. So her star turn didn't work. But 2 other Canadians got the big call up on the stage yesterday. Danielle Smith, who? Because her gamble of tripping over herself to buy plane tickets to go to the inauguration might have paid off because now she's on Fox News. And she didn't do all that bad, actually, for what her goals are. I think she might have come across quite well. The guy who was interviewing her seemed to be somewhat gushing at the end of the few minutes. But now that she's been on Fox and we know that this guy watches it all the time, well, maybe she will get her actual ticket somewhere along the way. Except for one thing. She was directly asked if she was a Trump fan, and she did not say yes.
Really?
Yes, so she didn't fully kiss the ring. Now, that might be more for domestic consumption. Maybe she can't go all in yet. But Kits and Cubs, please enjoy Danielle. And then, Kits and Cubs, the other person who tried to make his big audition debut is Doug Ford. And we're going to play that one too. And Kits and Cubs, I want you, and Mr. Grizzly, I want you to notice what it is them two really have in common in their interviews. And how they differ. Sorry. I'm cackling. I'm actually cackling. That's terrible. I'm delighting in this a little too much. Mr. Grizzly. if you would please roll Danielle when you have the opportunity. Yeah, it's the contrast was very striking because my ears pricked up when there's like a particular line that was common to both of them. So it seems that there was some coordination and planning. Hey, if we're asked this is what we'll say. But like I said, it's obvious that one's from the world of broadcasting and the other is not.
Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and President-elect Trump, well, they had a meeting. That's raising speculation of a Keystone Pipeline revival. The Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, joins me now. Madam Premier, you want to drill, baby, drill and open the pipeline and send your oil to America. Is that right?
It is. I've been wanting to double our production in Alberta since I got elected a couple of years ago. And America is our best friend and trading partner. We know that we benefit from more oil production. Americans benefit from more oil production because it's the basic feedstock that goes into gasoline, and it allows for Americans to be able to keep those prices low. And we hope that we can find a mutually satisfactory way of going forward so that we can increase our production and build more pipelines.
Do you think that President-elect Trump can exert enough pressure on your Prime Minister, Trudeau, to make that happen, open up that pipeline and get the oil flowing south?
Well, I must say it was actually the U.S. President Joe Biden who canceled the Keystone XL pipeline the day he came into office. There was a willing partner in Canada, not only in Alberta, but also on behalf of our federal government. So I would say that the ball is really in the Americans' court. We stand by ready to help. We know that our particular brand of oil, which is heavy oil, is what your refineries have been retooled to be able to receive. There's not very many places in the world you can get it from. Venezuela and Iraq and Iran, and we think we're a better trading partner and friend than those countries. And so we stand by ready to help, but it will depend on the direction that the U.S. administration takes.
I understand that you're coming to the inauguration in Washington, D.C., January the 20th. Are you a big Trump fan?
I am a fan of our biggest trading partner. It's a $188 billion relationship. We had a great relationship with the previous administration. I know we will have a great relationship with the new administration. I'm coming a bit early, though, because I hear that there's some good inauguration ball parties. So I'll be in on the 18th and stay until the 23rd. I don't want to miss out.
What about saving the planet? What about the climate? You're exporting all this oil. You're killing the planet. Didn't you know that?
Well, I can tell you, we have 200 billion barrels of oil in reserve that's recoverable. We've got 200 trillion cubic feet of gas. And we also have pore space that is probably the best in the world, next only to Russia. Once again, I think we're a better trading partner and friend than Russia. And so we have a plan to take carbon dioxide, capture it and bury it, carbon capture, utilization and storage. We already have done this at scale. We've already safely sequestered 14 million tons of CO2. We intend to do more of that. And I think that the other part of it is that we want to have our lower emissions fuel being exported internationally so that we can reduce the global emissions picture. So we have, I think, a lot to offer the world where we can not only provide energy security and affordability, but we can also reduce emissions. We think we have it all.
Trump joked that Canada should become America's 51st state. Can you put that graphic up? Because I think the president-elect put that out, looking towards Canada and saying, hey, you should be the 51st state. Are you offended by that?
I think President Trump has a great sense of humor, and we have. I think America is a very strong country. Canada is a very strong country. We have fought side by side and lost men and women in wars together. We want to stay strong partners, and I think that we've got so many common interests that ally us. I think that because of our integrated relationship on security matters, on energy matters, on trade matters, I think this is a partnership worth fighting for.
Madam Premier, if you've got time, stop by New York on your way to the inauguration. We'd love to see you here in the city. And it was good to have you on the show.
When I'm in New York, I'll see you. I certainly will take you up on that. Nice to talk to you.
Thanks very much indeed, ma'am. We'll see you soon, I hope. Thank you.
What does one say to that?
She charmed the pants off him. Madam Premier, If you're ever in the neighborhood, please stop by New York. Gush, gush, gush. She charmed him.
Yeah, well, she's got
He had a
media
great
training.
addition.
Don't forget, she worked in radio and television before she was the premier. She knows how to work a crowd.
We're
She knows what
ready
she's
to
doing.
help with our oil.
Yeah.
Said that
America
wife.
wants to be oil independent. Trump has said so, as PNC Bio pointed out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And are you a big fan of Donald Trump? I'm a fan of our biggest trading partner, $188 billion. Oh, okay. Nice sidestep. And she's going from the 18th to the 23rd. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 6 days. Loves a good party. The Premier of Alberta has 6 days to block off her calendar to make sure she gets to all those inaugural balls. She doesn't want to miss a thing. Since she wasn't even offered skybox yet. She must really want to go. Because when it was just a classic game, because there were no cushy seats, so she decided to take a pass. But she can't get her backside to Washington, D.C. fast enough. Now, let's watch the other audition.
I'll cue it up here.
Oh, man. Doug.
I haven't seen this yet, so I'm curious to see what it's going to look like.
Pierre might be breathing a sigh of relief, actually.
All right, here we go with Doug Ford's. Is this his debut on Fox News? I don't think he's been there
I
before.
would believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is his first time. All right, let's have a look at this.
Right, he's still a president-elect, but that didn't stop, Canada's Prime Minister, Trudeau, to stop and pay a visit at Mar-a-Lago to stop something that he says would be devastating to his country. He says at the same time to Canada and the United States mutually, and that is tariffs that the president plans when he reassumes office. Doug Ford is the Ontario Canada Premier. What he makes of all of this. Premier, very good to have you. You're joining us on the phone. I know we have some video issues with you, but what do you make of this and where this relationship stands?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Neil. We've always had an incredible relationship between Canada and the U.S., and we want to continue that. We want to make sure that we build Can-Am fortress, per se, if you want to call it that. And the real focus should be on China. It should be on Mexico. China bringing in cheap products through Mexico, slapping stickers that they made in Mexico and shipping it up through America into Ontario and Canada and costing Americans and Canadians jobs. That's what we should focus on. We're so much stronger together.
Do you think it was a mistake for the Prime Minister to visit Donald Trump?
No, I don't think it's a mistake at all. Right now, it's Team Canada, and I'm glad that the Prime Minister went down there, the first leader of the G7, to come and visit President-elect Trump.
A lot of people say there's a big difference between your country and China, and that they're kind of lumped in the same tariff bucket. What do you think?
Well, I think it's unfortunate considering Canada does $1.3 trillion of trade, more than China, Japan, UK, and France combined. Ontario alone does $500 billion of two-way trade. And I might add, it's equally split down the center. And you were a big auto province here, and it's parts can go back and forth across the border up to 8 times. So the supply chain is very connected.
Donald Trump was making a joke with Trudeau in which he said, you could always become a state and those problems go away. But what did you make of that?
Well, the president has a good sense of humor, and it's a funny comment. I guess he's still upset that in 1812 we burnt down your White House, and he's holding a grudge after 212 years. But I understand he's a funny guy. So.
But I am curious, whatever people's views on this subject and the individual personalities, the president-elect says that tariffs are the sweetest word to him. They're very effective. They can be used as a cudgel to get what you want out of those who you feel are taking advantage of you. But you can also go too far with these things, and other countries reciprocate with tariffs of their own, and it builds on itself. Do you think that this could really explode into a global recession if it gets out of hand?
Well, I hope not, Neil, because you can't compare Canada with any other country in the entire world when it comes to the U.S. We're part of the family, per se. We're the number one trading partner, Ontario alone, to 17 states. We're number 2 to 11 others. 9 million Americans wake up every single morning to produce products that get shipped up to our province, Ontario. And I think it's a great partnership. It's a great friendship that's gone on for many generations, and we want to keep it that way. We're so much stronger when we stick together. I heard the other day, Neil, I think it was yesterday, China came out and talked about the critical minerals. How they're going to cut the U.S. off. Well, who has the critical minerals? Ontario has the critical minerals, and I don't want to give them to anyone, but I'll tell you one thing, I want to give them to the U.S. to support them. They need our energy, the Americans. We ship 4.3 million barrels every single day down to the U.S. Ontario sends energy, electricity down to New York State, down to Michigan to keep your factories going, keeping the lights on in New York. That's what we have to offer and much more. So we look forward to a mutually rewarding relationship moving forward.
All right, we'll watch it very closely. Doug Ford, Ontario, Canada Premier. Premier, always good seeing you or hearing you again.
Yeah.
It's been a while. Doug Ford, the Canada Premier. These tariffs are going to be in effect, we are told, with Canada and Mexico. It could extend to much of Asia. So China is a front and center country, but it won't be limited to that, as Donald Trump targets what he says are unfair trading practices on the part of friend and foe alike on the global stage. We'll see if it does prove to be merely the cudgel he does get concessions from, or something worse.
Click here.
So, didn't go as well for Doug. Now, the folksy bits and stuff, might work. The one good part about that domestically for him is when he was asked if it was wrong for the prime minister to do so, he took an opposite track from Pierre. Pierre's like, when you go to meet with the president of the United States of America, well, he's not the president of the United States of America yet. So right away, incorrect premise. Your conclusion is necessarily going to be wrong. You normally try to go to get gains from someone who's not in power to give you them any yet, right? And without thinking that clarity is something you can gain. Clarity. So Doug Ford, it's no, the prime minister, it's Team Canada, you got to go. And that's the type of thing that does endear Doug Ford more to Canadians, even though he's woefully incompetent and very mob bossish.
Very much so.
Mob bossy. Because then Pierre Poilievre, who's just always attack, negative. Because every now and then, Doug Ford can take the side of Team Canada.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he's capable.
Pierre Poilievre,
Never.
He just cannot help himself.
I find that ironic, though, that because Doug is always the one who says, from the great state of Etobicoke.
Doug's a big, slap on the back from kind of guy, right?
Yeah.
So, I think he and Trump kind of have that in common. I think Trump would have a much better time hanging out with Doug Ford than he'd have hanging out with Pierre Poilievre. Pierre Poilievre is just trying to be Trump. It's like, dude, boy, sit down. I'm already performing this act, and I'm 78. I've been doing it longer. I got it down. Shoot.
I'll give Doug Ford this. He actually has a personality and charisma.
Yes.
Not a lot of charisma, but he does have some. Compared to Pierre Poilievre, who is just a angry, tiny, little man.
It's like, welcome to your hour of dower.
Yeah.
It's like he walks into a room and a dark cloud shows up, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it's going to be, oh, God, him again. Okay, what's he going to whine about this time? Ugh. Right? Yeah. So, Doug Ford, like, I mean, look, he Stag and Doe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's a fun time. He is a wild party. Right? So in that sense, Pierre maybe needs to worry because, according to Dave Wallace, right, it's, Doug Ford is positioning himself to sort of take over, and he is going to get a lot of help while getting on Fox News comes part of getting that lot of help. That article that appeared in the Toronto Star the other day, so why Doug Ford has got it right on tariffs or change. That's another one.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's a push. There appears to be, again, nothing has been confirmed out there. But if you look at the way that Doug Ford seems to be taking every opportunity to try to look statesmanlike over the past 2.5 weeks or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep on saying, when you start seeing new behavior, this is new behavior.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You got to start asking some questions. What's going on? Why is he doing this? Why is he seeking this much spotlight now? There's something going on.
Well, I've got the rumor is that Doug Ford's going to be replacing Pierre Poilievre as CPC party leader, which means he's leaving the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario to lead the Conservative Party of Canada, which, as we both know, there's nothing progressive about that party. But I got a clip here from our friend James's interview the other day with David Wallace that I'm going to share a couple minutes of this. I don't know if you've seen this yet.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about Pierre Poilievre for a second. So we have theorized. It's hard to find a smoking gun in this type of story, right? Like here's what we know. We know that the India Foreign Affairs Office was interested in the Conservative leadership campaign. We know this. We've seen pictures of Pierre Poilievre sitting at fundraisers or Conservative events, sitting right beside the India Foreign Affairs Minister, right? So we know that. We know that Patrick Brown, once again, for the second time in his career, was ousted by design. We know that Patrick Brown used to be really good friends with Modi, the president of India, but that they had a falling out because Patrick Brown was throwing roses. I'm being theatrical, but he was cozying up to Modi's enemies, basically separatist Indian people from Brampton when he was trying to win a local mayoral race. We also know that Modi used to sit on the board of the IDU that Stephen Harper chairs. Funny enough, his name was scrubbed from the website just after the Patrick Brown leadership race fiasco.
Fancy that.
Yeah, fancy that. So I don't want to sit here and toot our own horns. I don't care that we were kind of the first at the gate. Like I said, we do things very untraditionally. It doesn't matter, if we get credit or not. They wouldn't have given us credit because the way we go about it anyways. We're a little bit in the shadows, and we make phone calls, and we figure this shit out. But this one was really easy to read. Like, even without any evidence, at the time, we were talking about the story that appeared in the CBC website yesterday. Like, everything that's in this story, we pontificated about and theorized 2 years ago.
Yes.
So why do stories like this take so long? Do you care about getting credit? And what do you see happening when Patrick Brown testifies in front of the subcommittee?
I'll answer those questions in order. First of all, it takes so long because they're hoping the background noise washes this scandal away. And as for taking credit, I could give a shit. I spent almost 30 years never taking credit for anything because that wasn't my job. My job was to set a series of events in motion to achieve a specific result. It's not about taking credit. And the truth is, this is just the tip of the iceberg. The real smoking gun evidence is sitting in a bunch of court filings in Alberta courts that are being, how should I put this, buried. And the public will never be allowed to see these things because they would signal the absolute end to the upper tier of the Conservative Party of Canada, including Mr. Stephen Harper. Therefore, they utilize strategic lawsuits in order to keep me quiet. People can laugh. People can tell me how much bullshit it is. They can make fun. But at the end of the day, I've been right on every single story that's broken. And there's a reason for that. It's because I set a lot of these events in motion. I was paid to do it. And if the public knew, if they actually had access to the information, they would be disgusted. And this wouldn't even be a question of will Pierre Poilievre be removed. It'll be a question of should the Conservative Party of Canada, as constituted right now, be allowed to hold any public office, or will they be prosecuted as a criminal organization, which are cooperating with our foreign enemies.
Yeah.
Wow. Once again, David Wallace bringing the tea, as the kids say. Once again. I mean, and look, people go, well, what does he know? He just said, I set this in motion. I'm the one who did it. He fully admits what he did. He knows what his past life was.
Yeah.
And he had a
I mean, you
come to the light moment, if you will, when he realized that these people have no interest in our country. David is a progressive conservative. He's always said he's a conservative, but he is a progressive. Very much so. He believes in democracy, and he sees how dangerous these people are, and finally said, no, I can't be a party to this any longer. This is not good. And it all went back to when somebody from the PBCC said, we want you to take so-and-so out. He went, what? And they even suggested taking the prime minister out. And we're not talking to lunch, folks. That's when he went, nope, that's the line too far. That you have crossed over into anti-democratic beliefs. And now he's dropping all of the information on them. And he wrote the book, but the book is he can't publish it yet because there's a slap suit against him.
Yep. Indeed.
That's correct.
Indeed.
He was a fixer for cons for 30 years.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you know, he would know about a lot of these things. And so you have these undercurrents that are happening, you know, whatever the reason, like they feel that Pierre is too much of a liability, he's too pugnacious, he's too hair trigger, he seeks the spotlight a little too much, whatever it is that makes it such that they feel they might be looking for another bet, possibly. So might be another reason. We reported a couple of days ago that it looks like Doug Ford might not be going to a spring election after all, because some of the thinking is with Trump, you know, talking tariffs, all of a sudden it would look really bad. Well, another reason not to go for a provincial election right away, especially when you have more than a year left of runway, would be to not leave your party in a lurch as you leave it to go take on the leadership of another party?
Dougie doesn't care. Dougie will do what's best for Dougie.
I mean, why schedule an election and then have a leadership win it and then step down and have a leadership race? I mean, that wouldn't really go over well for your party. You would probably have to do that before. And well, leadership race takes some time. And the federal election is at the latest next October, which would be before, would still give time for the Ontario PC party to have a full leadership race. So that could be another reason that rumor has been going around. Of course, we won't know until we know. It's just rumor and speculation. But if you're looking at the behavior of the players, some of them are their buzz pattern has changed. The mating dance that they are doing is slightly different than it has been for the past little while. Mr. Grizzly, I sent you a clip about critical minerals.
Mm-hmm.
If you would like to show it, this is the people from Beau of the Fifth Column. This is actually a Bell of the Fifth Column, because Beau was on a hiatus himself for a little while and letting other people take over this part. But she relates to us how it is that China might have just given us a little hand in our trade negotiations on tariffs with the United States. Again, when you move one chess piece.
Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Belle again. So today, we're going to talk about how China just helped Canada with Trump's tariffs. When we think of trade issues, we think of Trump, and for good reason. He made it central to his campaign. But the international back and forth on trade is happening all the time. This is especially true when it comes to things that could be linked to national security, like high-tech components and energy. With a new Trump administration on the horizon, even the normal back and forth is taking dramatic turns as countries posture. The United States expanded export restrictions designed to hinder China's ability to make advanced semiconductors. The U.S. added 140 companies to the list of those facing restrictions. Jake Sullivan, who is Biden's national security advisor, said, quote, "The United States has taken significant steps to protect our technology from being used by our adversaries in ways that threaten our national security." Beijing was of course upset by this news, so the Chinese government imposed restrictions of their own, saying, quote, "In principle, the export of gallium, germanium, antimony, and super-hard materials to the United States shall not be permitted." This is a pretty big deal. China is a major supplier of these materials to the U.S. The materials are used in everything from solar panels to night vision equipment. The U.S. has its own deposits of these minerals, but for the most part doesn't mine them. But do you know who does? Canada. As soon as news of China's move broke, the Mining Association of Canada immediately started pointing this out as a method of pushing back on Trump's promised 25% tariffs. Quote, "China's recent decision to ban exports of gallium, germanium, antimony, and other high-tech materials with potential military applications in retaliation for U.S. restrictions on semiconductor-related exports underscores the precariousness of global supply chains. This development highlights the vital role of the Canada-U.S. trade relationship in addressing supply chain vulnerabilities." It went on. Imposing tariffs on Canadian minerals and metal exports to the U.S. would run counter to the shared goals of secure and reliable supply chains. Such measures risk disrupting the essential flow of these resources, undermining the competitiveness of North American industries, and exacerbating vulnerabilities in critical mineral supply chains that both nations are working to address. The Canadians are wordy, but they aren't wrong. U.S. civilian industry would be happy to get their critical minerals from any supplier anywhere in the world. As far as they're concerned, wherever is the cheapest and reliable is fine. The U.S. defense industry and the policymakers concerned with defense manufacturing would absolutely love to develop a supply chain completely contained within North America. As far as they're concerned, the only thing better than domestic production would be Canadian production. These minerals are critical to U.S. manufacturing and defense industries, and U.S. demand for them is only going to climb year after year for the foreseeable future. When it comes to the global trade issues that are about to be a major part of that international poker game where everybody's cheating, Canada just lifted a card from China. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.
Well, I mean,
But
we
the
are
Prime
a
Minister's
very
too weak.
large country,
Mhm.
a lot of which has not been fully explored for minerals as of yet. So
Mhm.
yeah, we could probably ramp that up and provide them with the product they need.
Mhm. Like I said, you move one piece on the chessboard and other things happen.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Mhm. All right. One last little thing. I sent you a little clip. It has a little funny. The one last thing.
Mm-hmm.
You will notice that when Doug Ford and Danielle Smith were having their respective auditions, they were asked about the 51st state quip, which, as you know, kids and cubs, I did not take seriously yesterday. Just your distraction of the day. No point in entertaining that. And both of them had the reaction, oh, well, Donald Trump has such a great sense of humor. Except when Daniel Smith said it, says, well, the president has got such a great sense of humor. And when Doug Ford said it, well, the president's got a great sense of humor.
Mm-hmm. It's all just whatever.
Who did a better job at faking sincerity?
Oh, Daniel Smith did for sure.
Oh
she
my
knows
God.
how to perform.
Well, if the president-elect has a great sense of humor, then he'll love this.
You've gotten very blurry. There we go. You're better now.
Okay. Did the whole thing play?
Yeah, it played. Yeah, it did.
Did the whole thing play?
It played. Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Okay, because I only saw a group of people walking. Okay. All right, good. All right. So yeah. maybe he will find that funny because that the president-elect posted a picture of AI of him on a mountain with the Canadian flag and just, oh, Canada. So seems Canada seems the Canadian flag doesn't want Donald Trump to start climbing all over it like he does the US one.
Well,
hey, we gotta laugh. We gotta laugh because there's a lot of stuff going on. Oh my God. Okay. That's about the major sort of stuff, the big developments. There's a couple of tiny little things, relatively, to mention. In France, they did have the no confidence vote, and the Prime Minister of France and its government has been rejected. So Macron has to name another prime minister, and it took him quite a while to find this one in the bunch. But yeah, France is in a new situation that it hasn't been in, I believe, since the 60s. That was the last time that a prime minister was was unceremoniously dumped. Probably it'd be the better way to put it. So we'll keep our eyes open for what will go on there. And in South Korea, in the South Korean parliament, they have begun hearings into the martial law crisis. The vice defense minister said that he knew nothing about the plan and found out about it from the media. The votes on the president's impeachment is also expected in the next few days. The president and his defense minister are also facing a police investigation with regard to allegations of insurrection. And that crime happens to not be protected by presidential immunity in South Korea. Take notes, United States of America. And it is an offense punishable by life in prison or death. So life might be coming rather quickly at the still for now president of South Korea.
Yes, for the time being. Yeah, that could change
For
quickly.
Yeah, literally for the time being. It's looks at a lot of upheaval over there. The other thing I would want to read to you, kids and cubs, this might take a little bit. But as we mentioned yesterday, a second Trump nominee pulled out. It was his nominee to lead the DEA. And it seems that it wasn't only that there was still some stuff in his job as sheriff of the county of which he is sheriff that he still wants to accomplish before. So he can't take this job at the DEA. It seems that scrutiny found that there were a couple of things in his past that could cause some embarrassing questions. So he decided to step aside. But the next person that people are wondering will step aside is his nominee for Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. And there was a profile in the New Yorker by Jane Mayer that I would like to read in because this is quite a story. After the recent revelation that Pete Hegseth had secretly paid a financial settlement to a woman who had accused him of raping her in 2017, President-elect Donald Trump stood by his choice of Hegseth to become the next Secretary of Defense. Trump's communications director, Stephen Chung, issued a statement noting that Hegseth, who has denied wrongdoing, has not been charged with any crime. Quote, President Trump is nominating high-caliber and extremely qualified candidates to serve in his administration, Chung maintained. But Hegseth's record before becoming a full-time Fox News TV host in 2017 raises additional questions about his suitability to run the world's largest and most lethal military force. A trail of documents corroborated by the accounts of former colleagues indicates that Hegseth was forced to step down by both of the two not-profit advocacy groups that he ran, Veterans for Freedom and Concerned Veterans for America, in the face of serious allegations of financial mismanagement, sexual impropriety, and personal misconduct. A previously undisclosed whistleblower report on Hegseth's tenure as the president of Concerned Veterans for America from 2013 to 2016 describes him as being repeatedly intoxicated while acting in his official capacity, to the point of needing to be carried out by the organization's events. The detailed 7-page report, which was compiled by multiple former CVA employees and sent to the organization's senior management in February 2015, states that at one point, Hegseth had to be restrained while drunk from joining the dancers on the stage of a Louisiana strip club where he had brought his team. Only the best people. The report also says that Hegseth, who was married at the time, and other members of his management team sexually pursued the organization's female staffers, whom they divided into two groups, the, quote, party girls and, quote, not party girls. In addition, the report asserts that under Hegseth's leadership, the organization became a hostile workplace that ignored serious accusations of impropriety, including an allegation to sexually assault her, including an allegation made by a female employee that another employee on Hegseth's staff had attempted to sexually assault her at the Louisiana strip club. In a separate letter of complaint, which was sent to the organization in late 2015, a different former employee described Hegseth being at a bar in the early morning hours of May 29, 2015, while on an official tour through Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, drunkenly chanting, "Kill all Muslims, kill all Muslims." Only the best people. In response to questions from this magazine, Tim Parlatore, a lawyer for Hegseth, replied with the following statement, which he said came from, quote, an advisor to Hegseth. Quote, "We're not going to comment on outlandish claims laundered through the New Yorker by a petty and jealous, disgruntled former associate of Mr. Hegseth's. Get back to us when you try your first attempt at actual journalism." Problem is that there's more than just one former associate of Mr. Hegseth saying this, disgruntled or not. Senator Richard Blumenthal, a Democrat from Connecticut and a member of the Senate Armed Service Committee, described the report of Hegseth's drinking as alarming and disqualifying. In a phone interview, Blumenthal, who currently leads the Senate committee that will review Hegseth's nomination, told me, quote, much as we might be sympathetic to people with continuing alcohol problems, they shouldn't be at the top of our national security structure. Blumenthal went on. It's dangerous. The Secretary of Defense is involved in every issue of national security. He's involved in the use of nuclear weapons. He's the one who approves sending troops into combat. He approves drone strikes that may involve civilian casualties. Literally, life and death issues are in the hands of the Secretary of Defense, and entrusting these kinds of issues to someone who might be incapacitated for any reason is a risk we cannot take. Might I also suggest that that also applies to Canada for potential prime ministers?
I think. Allegedly.
But I digress. Blumenthal noted that an earlier nominee for Secretary of Defense, Senator John Tower, a Republican from Texas, was voted down by his Senate colleagues in 1989 because of concerns about his drinking and womanizing. It was the first time that the cabinet pick of a newly elected president, in this case George H.W. Bush, was rejected by the Senate. Quote, John Tower went down for these same kinds of issues, Blumenthal said. I don't think it's a partisan issue. In January 2016, Hegseth resigned from Concerned Veterans for America under pressure. An account in the Military Times said that Hegseth had, quote, quietly resigned in a decision that was, quote, mutual with the organization amid, quote, rumors of a rift between the former CEO and the group's financial backers. Hegseth, who had no other job lined up at the time, gave no explanation for his departure other than saying, quote, sometimes it just makes sense to make a transition. Except if you're transgender and you're in the military. Right, Mr. Hegseth? Sorry, couldn't resist. CVA, for its part, released a statement saying that it thanked Hegseth, quote, for his many contributions and wished him well. But according to the three knowledgeable sources, one of whom contributed to the whistleblower report, Hegseth was forced to step down from the organization, in part because of concerns about his mismanagement and abuse of alcohol on the job. Quote, congratulations on removing Pete Hegseth is the subject line of an email obtained by the New Yorker that was sent to Hegseth's successor as president of the group. Ouch. The email sent under a pseudonym by one of the whistleblowers included a copy of the report and went on to say, quote, among the staff, the disgust for Pete was pretty high. Most veterans do not think he represents them nor their high standard for excellence. The email also stated that Hegseth had, quote, a history of alcohol abuse, quote, and had, quote, treated the organization funds like they were a personal expense account for partying, drinking, and using CVA events as little more than opportunities to hook up with women on the road.
So does this guy think he's Slick Willie?
Starting to see what, yeah, I think I'm starting to see what Trump saw in him.
Mm-hmm.
That's my kind of
well,
people.
Remember, Bill Clinton's nickname was Slick Willie because he used his office to, anyway, you know. And he was impeached for that.
Who had, yeah, he was. Pack, who had, well, tried. The impeachment happened. He was successfully.
Yeah.
Pack, who had served as CVA's chief operating officer before taking over its presidency and who no longer works there, declined to comment. A spokesman at Americans for Prosperity, the umbrella political group run by far-right billionaire Koch family, under whose auspices Concerned Veterans for America was launched in 2011, so just another grassroots organization, confirmed that Hegseth had resigned but declined to comment further on personal matters. Breitbart News, a publication that acts as a publicist for Trump, attempted to discredit this article before it was published by claiming that it would be citing a, quote, screed about Hegseth written by a, quote, jealous former coworker who had been, quote, fired. In fact, the report disclosed in this article is not the same document, although there are some overlaps. Nearly a dozen employees were laid off by CVA during the time Hegseth worked there, and the proliferation of critical memos and letters to the group's management speaks to the high level of discontent within the organization. The whistleblower report makes extensive allegations. It describes several top managers being involved in drunken episodes, including an altercation at a casino and a hotel Christmas party at which food was thrown from the balcony. Hegseth, it says, was seen drunk at multiple CVA events between 2013 and 2015, a time when the organization was engaged in an ambitious nationwide effort to mobilize veterans to vote for conservative candidates and causes. The project gave Hegseth and his team the opportunity to travel far from the organization's headquarters in Northern Virginia. Hegseth and his team gave speeches, assisted conservative campaigns, and collected voter data valuable for the Cox political operation. As a decorated veteran who, by 2014, had become an on-air contributor to Fox News, Hegseth was the public face of the group's missions, conducting a whistle-stop tour with his team from city to city, packaged by CVA as the Defend Freedom Tour. I spoke at length with two people who identified themselves as having contributed to the whistleblower report. One of them said of Hegseth, quote, "I've seen him drunk so many times. I've seen him dragged away not a few times, but multiple times. To have him at the Pentagon would be scary," adding, "When those of us who worked at CVA heard he was being considered for sec def, it wasn't no. It was a hell no." According to the complaint, at one such CVA event in Virginia Beach on Memorial Day weekend 2014, Hegseth was, quote, "totally sloshed" and needed to be carried to his room because, quote, "he was so intoxicated." The following month, during an event in Cleveland, Hegseth, who had gone with his team to a bar around the corner from the hotel, was described as, quote, "completely drunk in a public place." According to the report, quote, "several high-profile people who attended the organization's event, quote, were very disappointed to see this kind of public behavior, though the report does not identify them." In October 2014, the CVA instituted a no-alcohol policy at his events. No shit. But the next month, according to the report, Hegseth and another manager lifted the policy while overseeing a get-out-the-vote field operation to boost Republican candidates in North Carolina. According to the report, on the evening before the election, Hegseth, who had been out with three young, so inebriated by 1 a.m. that a staffer who had driven him to his hotel in a van full of other drunken staffers asked for assistance to get Hegseth to his room. Quote, "Pete was completely passed out in the middle seat, slumped over," a young female staff member, the report says. It took two male staff members to get Hegseth into the hotel. After one young woman vomited in some bushes, another helped him into bed. In the morning, a team member had to wake Hegseth so that he didn't miss his flight. Quote, "All of this happened in public," according to the report, while CVA was, quote, "embedded in the Republican get-out-the-vote effort." It went on, quote, "Everyone who saw this was disgusted and in shock that the head of the team was that intoxicated." According to the report, a volunteer for the organization during this period was so concerned about the rampant promiscuity and sexism that she sent an email to the CVA's headquarters complaining about a lack of professionalism, an unhealthy workplace, and an atmosphere in which women were unfairly treated. According to the whistleblower with whom I spoke, the volunteer received no response. The New Yorker was unable to reach the volunteer, but a source unconnected to the CVA confirmed that the volunteer had also spoken to him about having sent an email to the group's top management because she had been upset by Hegseth's frequent drunkenness. In late November 2014, Hegseth and his team deployed to Louisiana for a U.S. Senate runoff. This is when, according to the whistleblower complaint, Hegseth took the CVA team to the strip club where, quote, "he was so drunk he tried to get on the stage and dance with the strippers." A female CVA associate, the report says, quote, "had to get him off the stage," adding she had to intervene with security to prevent him from getting thrown out. The whistleblower continued as if in disbelief, quote, "A Fox News contributor with the rank of captain at the time in the National Guard and the CEO of a veterans organization was in a strip club trying to dance with strippers." Meanwhile, the female staffer who had to restrain Hegseth at the strip club alleged that a different male staff member had attempted to sexually assault her there, according to the report. A CVA manager, however, was described as dismissive for arguing that her attacker had been drunk, therefore shouldn't be held responsible. According to the report, the female staffer took steps to file a complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and CVA hired outside counsel. The female staffer declined to be interviewed. But according to a source aware of the case, the matter was settled with the payment to the staffer concealed by a non-disclosure agreement. As a result, the woman who was, quote, ostracized and, quote, experiencing reprisal by the organization, which the whistleblower report said, quote, has become a hostile and intimidating work environment. Another female staff member was also described as having been sexually harassed by a colleague, but was too intimidated to come forward, quote, because she desperately needs her job. The report declared in bold print, quote, "fear of reprisal looms over every woman associated with the organization." In December 2014, the group held an office Christmas party at the Grand Hyatt in Washington. Once again, according to the report, Hegseth was, quote, noticeably intoxicated and had to be carried up to his room. The report stated, "His behavior was embarrassing in front of the team, but not surprising. People have simply come to expect Pete to get drunk at social events." Ouch. The 2015 federal tax filing by CVA has an unusual note saying, quote, that major programs developed in the last fiscal year were paused, and it describes Hegseth as, quote, President outgoing. By the start of 2016, Hegseth, who had been paid a salary of $177,460, was out of his job. A separate letter obtained by the New Yorker, which was emailed by a different staffer on November 2015 to Pack, Hegseth's successor, expresses the upset that Hegseth's behavior caused. Quote, the organization is owed the truth, the staffer wrote before he described the two incidents that he said, quote, changed my perception of Mr. Pete Hegseth, especially, quote, as the face of the CVA. He went on to recount what took place in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. On May 29, 2015, the staffer said Hegseth and someone traveling with the group's Defend Freedom tour closed down the bar at the Sheraton Suites Hotel. The duo yelled, kill all Muslims, multiple times, in what the staffer described as, quote, a drunk and violent manner. Hegseth's, quote, despicable behavior, he wrote, quote, embarrassed the entire organization. He went on, quote, I personally was ashamed and others were as well. The staffer's letter cited a second incident in which he wrote Hegseth, quote, passed out in the back of a party bus, then urinated in front of a hotel where CVA's team was staying. Quote, I tell you this because it's the truth, the letter concluded, and I sincerely care about the mission of the CVA and the future of my kids in the country. Reached for comment, the author of the letter said, quote, if you print that, I will deny I wrote it. When he was reminded that it had been sent from the same personal email account that he still uses, he said, quote, I don't care. I'll just say it never happened. Hegseth has been open about resorting to alcohol during a period in his life when he had returned to the U.S. from active military duty and felt lost. In a 2022 interview with the Reserve and National Guard magazine, he said that after coming home, he felt isolated and unmoored. Raised in Minnesota, Hegseth signed up for the Army ROTC in 2001 while attending Princeton, where he majored in politics and published in the Princeton Tory, a pugnacious conservative journal that lambasted liberalism on campus. He published a commentary by another student mocking the view expressed during the school's orientation program that sex with an unconscious partner constituted rape. Okay. All right. As first reported online by the newsletter Popular Information run by Judd Legum, the commentary claimed that rape required both a failure to consent and duress, which a passed-out woman could not experience. After graduating in 2003, Hegseth worked briefly on Wall Street as an equity markets analyst at Bear Stearns. In 2004, he was deployed for a year to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, where he oversaw a platoon of soldiers from New Jersey guarding detainees. Soon after returning and still with the National Guard, he volunteered to serve in Iraq, for which the Army awarded him the first of 2 Bronze Stars for meritorious service. Afterwards, he moved to New York, a transition that he has acknowledged was, quote, jarring. He told Reserve and National Guard magazine, quote, I went from being in a combat zone to being in an apartment in Manhattan and without any contact other than phone calls here or an email there with the guys who I had served with, he said. I didn't do much and I drank a lot trying to process what I had been through while dealing with the civilian world that frankly just didn't seem to care. Advocating for veterans gave him a renewed sense of purpose, he said. In New York, he met a Marine who was working for a small nonprofit organization called Vets for Freedom, which advocated for expanding the war in Iraq. In an interview, one early conservative sympathizer with the group described it to me as essentially an, quote, astroturf organization that had been devised by a handful of big-time political players to look like it was a grassroots veterans movement. Hegseth once told a former associate that VFF's donors included 3 Republican billionaires who have since passed away: Bernard Marcus, the Home Depot magnate, Jerry Parentio, the former head of Univision, and Harold Simmons, a Texas entrepreneur. Hegseth appealed to the backers, the early sympathizer told me. He was a handsome, articulate Princeton graduate who had served honorably in the military and at the time he believed ardently in the surge in America's war in Iraq. By 2007, Hegseth had become the organization's leader. Quote, I had no idea what I was doing, he told the National Guard publication. I didn't know if it would work. In fact, under his leadership, VFF soon ran up enormous debt, and financial records indicate that by the end of 2008, it was unable to pay its creditors. The group's primary donors became concerned that their money was being wasted on inappropriate expenses. There were rumors of parties that could, quote, could politely be called trysts, as the former associate of the group put it. The early sympathizer said, quote, I was not the first to hear that there was money sloshing around and sexually inappropriate behavior in the workplace. In 2004, Hegseth had married the first of 3 wives, his high school girlfriend from Minnesota, Meredith Schwartz, but he often lived apart from her while working in Washington, staying at a pool house owned by the parents of one of her college friends. In 2008, Schwartz filed for divorce after Hegseth admitted to multiple infidelities. His wife later learned that a journalist he'd introduced her to was among those with whom he was having an affair. The couple divorced in 2009. Meanwhile, the finances of VFF grew so dire that the group's donors hatched a plan to take control away from Hegseth. The donors' representatives hired a forensic accountant to review the books. The findings were appalling. In January 2009, Hegseth sent a letter to the donors admitting that as of the day, the group had less than $1,000 in the bank and $434,833 in unpaid bills.
Wow.
Holy crap. He'd only been there less than 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
The group had also run up credit card debts of as much as $75,000. Hegseth said that he took full responsibility for the mess, but added that unless the donors gave him more funds, VFF would have to file for bankruptcy and close down. One of the group's backers initially agreed to Hegseth's request, but according to early sympathizer, the donors decided, quote, let's shut this thing down. Pete can get another job. The donors were strong supporters of America's military role in Iraq and Afghanistan, arranged for another veterans group's Military Family United, which represented Gold Star families, to merge with VFF and take over most of its management. We tried to castrate him, Hegseth, former associate, admitted. It was a handoff. Annual federal tax filings for VFF showed the group's coffers draining and Hegseth's compensation dwindling. In 2010, the records show Hegseth was identified as the group's executive director/president and was paid $45,000 for 30 hours of work a week. The next year, he was identified as the group's officer and paid a salary of $5,000 for 30 minutes of work a week. In 2012, the tax filing again identified him as the group's officer, and his compensation rose to $8,000, but the total grants received by the group that year totaled a mere $81. Margaret Hoover, Republican political commentator and political strategist who worked as an advisor to VFF between 2008 and 2010, recently told CNN that she had great concerns about Hegseth's ability to run the Pentagon, the largest department in the federal government, given his mismanagement at VFF. Quote, I watched him run an organization very poorly, lose the confidence of donors. The organization ultimately folded and was forced to merge with another organization who individuals felt could run and manage funds on behalf of donors more responsibly than he could. That was my experience with him, Hoover stressed, that the VFF was an exceedingly small organization with fewer than 10 employees and a budget of between $5 million and $10 million. She told CNN, and he couldn't do that properly. I don't know how he's going to run an organization with $857 billion budget and 3 million individuals. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That would, my God.
Sounds like this gentleman has a pretty bad problem. I think he needs some serious help.
This is why you allow the FBI to do the background checks before you name the people.
Mm-hmm. He has a severe issue by the sounds of things, like a pretty bad alcohol issue.
And this goes on to more.
Mm-hmm.
So SA allegations, can't keep it in his pants in any way, shape, or form. Total mismanages organizations, uses them as a piggy bank, womanizes, divides the women and the work staff as party girls and non-party girls.
He has issues.
Now, he says he is going to hold strong, but the problem is that he can only afford to lose 3 votes in the Senate, and there are already at least 4. So according to some stories, up to 6 people who definitely want more information about this guy. There might not be the votes for him either. And then that would make 3 of his nominees. The other thing going on in the United States is that the House has finally been decided. All the votes are counted. There were 2 seats that flipped. So it puts the Republicans with a 5-seat majority, but 3 of those seats are already not occupied because Trump tapped them to bring him into his administration. So they'll need special elections. So until those can take place in the House, the Republicans can only afford to lose 1 vote. to get anything passed. So the question is, who is going to become the Republicans' equivalent of Kristen Sinema or Joe Manchin, but in the House?
Honestly, don't know. But
they're going to have a hard time passing some things.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Grizzly, do we have a show?
We do indeed, sir.
All right, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember that sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. And you have the mouths from which we want the words to come. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. Now, if you do not want to miss an episode, you don't have to, thanks to the Ray Girl, because she sponsors our pod page, podpage.com/the-true-north-eager-beaver, lowercase letters with a hyphen between each one of those words. And if you click subscribe there, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you. Or maybe you want to surf on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page like Kit Elaine does every day and Kit Cassie does, and click our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. Click them all. Have yourself a good time and make us a little happy. Thank you so much. And if you'd like to help us in other ways, the QR code that has appeared by Mr. Grizzly's head will bring you to our coffee page. That's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, lowercase letters, all in one word. And there you will find our tip jar. So if you want to leave us a little thing because, you think that we did a good show and you want to encourage us to do more, and of course, that helps us underwrite our costs of producing this and marketing this and bringing it to you, then please do so. It would make us very happy, and we appreciate all the help that we can get. Now, if you're not able to contribute financially, please don't worry, because the gift of your presence and your attention are the gifts that we appreciate most, and we love to hear from you. TrueNorthEagerBeaver@gmail.com is where you can send us some letters and let us know what you think about the show or ask us some questions. You can also write to us at True Eager at Blue Sky and on Twitter, True North Eager Beaver on Facebook, or right down here if you're watching on YouTube in the comment section. We do try to read everything, not able to answer everything, but we do read everything, and we thank you for all your contributions to the show. Because democracy is something that you do. If you live in Cloverdale, Langley City, you have a federal by-election coming up on December 16th, and on December 18th, if you live in Lethbridge West, you have a provincial by-election coming up there. So do all the usual things that you need to do in order to research your candidates and maybe volunteer to help out in some way, either at a polling station or to volunteer to help out a candidate. Right. Mr. Grizzly, do you have some words of wisdom?
Get the rest you need. Try and get some sunlight. Get some vitamin D into your system. I'm just really tired right now. The last few days of traveling have really taken their toll on me physically and emotionally. So I'm kind of a zombie at the moment. So I apologize.
That's quite all right. Please take some time for some self-care, my good friend.
Going to.
It could be a tough world out there. So please be kind to and gentle with yourself. Mr. Grizzly, please cue the cock. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.
I have something for you you need to see.
Be clear, we're not
All right, Mr. Grizzly. Just a quick little Easter egg, sent you a little something here. It's an image of our Prime Minister with a whole bunch of Canadians.
to make this estate. It's I think
The delay
has
is
the
really
third
bad.
largest oil reserves in the world. Oh, a lot. So that makes us
that what I just sent you?
energy behemoth. It's the most well-educated country in the world because we need a little help in that department. Talk about mining, agriculture, fishing, AI, tech, real estate, Canada, you name it, they got it. We'll never probably lose another Winter Olympics. We'll have all of their skaters and skiers. Wow. I mean, good luck, Sweden. And they share our cultural heritage. They share our language. It's just a no-brainer. Now, I don't know if Canada is going to go along with it, but there's ways to maybe change their opinion.
No, we're not going along with it. We're not going along with it at all. Not in the least bit.
Yeah.
Here, I got your clip for you here in just a second.
Well, it's kind of funny because this ties in.
Yeah. Team Canada's post. It's not video, it's just a photo.
Yeah. So it's the Prime Minister with a whole bunch of Canadians who make us proud because there was a ceremony on the Hill yesterday before question period for the Prime Minister to show all of our appreciation as Canadians to these wonderful Olympians who have done us so proud and have been exceptional ambassadors. So just want to end it on a high note. All right. Have a terrific day, everyone.
All right. See you later.